Hello and welcome to Into the Foxhole, episode 11. Your boy Ed.
It's your boy Craig.
Yeah.
It's about to happen.
We're back at it again. We're gonna talk about a topic. It's near and dear to some of us. Your boy C. Rob likes the stories. So we'd like to talk about stories in games on this podcast. Lots of big things coming out. Fallout 4 just came out. Amazing story. But what really makes a great story in the respect of the realm of what the medium is of gaming? Now, we know a good book, good movie's a good movie. What's a good game in terms of a story? We don't mean told to you like a book or something. We mean really given to you in the realm of the game you're playing. Now, Craig and I have had this, talk many times for a long time regarding stories.
Any game that comes out will have this talk.
Pretty much. We've had some games that were done it bad, got games that done it good.
Great.
So some of the games that done it bad. You heard me here. We're gonna just point it all out, not giving no fucks either. We're gonna say Halo. So Halo does it this way. Mind you, I like the first Halo when released.
I don't.
I like the first Halo when released in terms of it's 2001. And it wasn't like a time period where you had a shitload of great first-person shooters in terms of a story. And this story was basically like, okay, here's a guy, and then robots invade, and then they're aliens, and you gotta kill the aliens.
I'm gonna be completely upfront with you. Like, Halo came out, like I said, 2001. It was early 2000s, right? Halo came out, everyone was freaking out about it.
Aliens.
You got kids running out to buy their
Master
Xboxes.
Chief.
They need their Xboxes because they need these games. Right? And I'm like, oh man, this must be something serious. I had my PS2 at the time. I'm like, oh man, is Xbox worth a purchase? Go over to one of my boys' house, crank up the Halo, and I didn't get it. I didn't get the appeal then. I don't get the appeal now.
Gonna be like, of course you didn't, Craig. You didn't read the book. No.
In terms of gameplay,
ain't read no book.
I'm not an expert on the first-person shooter genre, so I can't really say whether or not it's good or bad. But the game, to me, just seemed generic.
Right. It felt right. I don't disagree with you. That is exactly what Halo was. I mean, it's in terms of how it felt. It's an amazing game, no doubt. In terms of how it felt, there was nothing. There was no other game you could say that even came close to it in terms of that feel at that time in 2001. In terms of story, Halo story was as cookie cutter as it gets. Absolutely. This story was a good story for 2001. They're aliens. There's a bad guy. Here's a good guy. He's a Marine. So it's it's a story that plays itself. It's,
that U.S. Army jerkin.
It's a story.
That Michael Bay U.S. Army jerkin, man.
It's the Marine. It's a good story for 2001 for a first-person shooter. It is not a great story. This is a story that's like good by comparison of the time. It's not even a great thing if you consider. That's almost like saying
when did Half-Life come out?
Yeah, I know, but Half-Life 1 came out like 1998, 1999.
Granted, Half-Life is an anomaly in and of itself.
Yes, and it has a fantastic story. My point with Halo is at the time on that platform in that era, you didn't really have that many first-person shooters that were good, in my opinion, to even compare it to. This is almost like trying to say, okay, you got this Olympic runner, you got some fucking crippled kid, and he beat him. You're like, man, that guy was really the best. The best because he is that good, or because he's going against some fucking crippled kid. So at that time, you didn't have that. My personal opinion has always been that Killzone has had a superior story to Halo because its story is contained within the actual game you play. There is nothing else you get that tells you this is what happens in Halo. The story about how these people appear in Killzone in terms of why they're on this planet, how they got on this planet, and the war that, they're brewing with these other people makes sense, and it's told to you inside of the actual game itself.
Right.
So you have a story where it's like one planet goes to colonize another planet. They send some people out there to colonize this planet, realize that this planet cannot be inhabited. After a while, these people are forming all sorts of cancers and lesions and diseases, and they realize they can't stay on this planet. They have to get all these respiratory things. So the way they see it is, we can't stay on this planet. This was a bad idea. We've wasted trillions trying to colonize it, and it's a lost cause. Fuck it, let's go back to our home planet. Right. The home planet looking like, nah, fuck that, we better quarantine y'all niggas, y'all boys look sick. So they're like, this planet got Ebola, we don't think y'all gonna tell y'all boys back. So the way that people look at it is like, they get whoever is the representatives of this planet at that time, and he just says, fuck it. If they're going to sit there and go against us, we're going to go against them. They're no longer anyone to us. They take what they had where they used to essentially colonize that planet, and now they're using it to war against the planet that left them behind. Right. So it tells you this awesome story about these people who made this civilization here, and the bad guy in some strange way is Vector. Vector is the bad guy, even though the Helghast are evil people and they look evil. Vector is the sort of the bad guy if you consider they are the people that said, well, we're just gonna, leave them on the planet and not come back. So it's like they're quarantining them and letting them die, and they're saying, fuck that, for revenge, we're gonna go after this other planet. Yeah. We want to breathe some clean air. Fuck y'all boys. So
the villains seem justified.
Yes, and it's a great story. It's an interesting story because it's not a generic story. There is nothing that you could say is in comparison to such a weird story like Killzone's, because it uniquely offers something that we kind of don't have at all. The only close thing that comes to this is the South trying to secede from the North. That's the only thing that comes from it, but never with the twist narrative that these people are, by health reasons, have to stay on there and need to, go on their previous planet. Nothing to that, extent. Now, my issue that comes with Halo has to do with that majority of the story that people tell you is epic and complex and a deep universe doesn't come from the game. It comes from these books.
Absolutely.
So it's like...
No, yeah, that's the thing. Like, I was about to bring that up, but it's like, anytime you talk to people about Halo's story, like, oh man, the story's amazing. Master Chief's such a great character.
The Arbiter.
Blah, blah, blah. The Arbiter, but he's just these people, they're so influential in the things that they do in the books.
Yes,
aren't these based off the games? Like, yeah, they're based off the games, but the books. It's like, no, show me. It's like, that's the same problem. Oh, I shouldn't bring this up yet, but
I'm gonna kill you.
I'm gonna leave it alone.
You're mad, Craig.
I'm gonna get back to this point, but like these books shouldn't be the driving force behind your main characters. Like, the whole deal, I'm playing a game. I'm playing an experience. Sure, you got your cool set pieces, you'll be on your ships, shit's exploding, Master Chief's shooting guys, and he's just like, I need a weapon, and all that cool shit that he says and does. But when it comes down to it, playing these games, Master Chief doesn't feel like a person to me at all. He's just like this hollow thing that I kind of slipped into his skin, and not in a good way. There's a good way to slip into someone's skin and oh, you are the character, but no, that's not how it is.
This game does it poorly.
I'm slipping into this guy's skin and just moving him around like a lifeless puppet in this world, and things are happening around me, and I'm not necessarily influencing anything in this world. I'm just kind of there, doing my thing, and people are you seem important, so you should do this thing.
The problem I have is that's not only a problem with the game in terms of how you interpret it as the player, it's a problem with how the actual character in the game does it himself. Now, we talked on a previous podcast regarding characters in which somebody is going to... We have games which, it's about that character, and then we have games where you are that character. I mean, Halo almost falls in a line where that's almost neither. He himself impacts the world. It's deeply directed to the point where it's it doesn't feel realistically that one person would do all this, especially if you consider
it's almost like I'm watching a movie through his eyes. You know, like I'm just like watching things happen, and like I'm kind of involved because I'm there, kind of. But at the same time, I'm like, again, I'm not influencing anything. Because the whole point, like my whole thing is, maybe I'm not too familiar with Halo's story and things that happen in Halo, but what makes Master Chief want to fight these things other than the fact that they're bad?
Yeah, I mean, that's my greatest issue. It's like the only thing you have with this in terms of the threat of this alien force that's like dooming upon them is that it is a threat of an alien force dooming upon them.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I'm just like thrust into like, I guess, yeah, I was born to do this, but like,
this is like,
you don't have any emotions yourself. You're not allowed to feel anything.
This harkens back to the entire idea of something like Splinter Cell. Now, Splinter Cell with Sam Fisher's character, Sam Fisher is part of this elite group, and he is himself known as a Splinter Cell.
Right.
Splinter Cells in the very first actual game are stated that they can be replaced at any moment in time. Fail your mission, they'll just kill you and replace you.
Right.
So anyone can be what he is. The problem is, well, that sort of same thing goes to Master Chief, other than Master Chief being like a cyborg, because apparently parts of Master Chief are not human.
Let me cut off your arm and I'll replace that shit with a
exactly. And my issue is, well, that makes them even more strangely replaceable. I mean, by that own idea. So that's my biggest issue is not necessarily the story in terms of how other people are trying to tell it to you. It's the fact that not a lot of this gets told in the game.
Yeah.
And it makes you beg to question what is the thing that makes it interesting other than aliens attacking Earth and you're killing them. I mean, if you made this a movie, I don't think it would be a good movie. No, like, I don't know any other interesting characters in this universe other than Master Chief, Arbiter, and it's like I don't really.
Tell you exactly why it doesn't make a good movie. It doesn't make a good movie. At least the first Halo. Like I'm going strictly off my knowledge of the first Halo. Literally, the first Halo. I remember you almost get like birthed out of this like containment pod, and like, oh man, you're the Master Chief, and like you're testing your sights and all that good stuff, and then you just go, and you're just like you're just involved. Now.
It is an
and
entire
it's just like there is zero personal connection to your actual mission other than the fact that you need to do it, and like that doesn't make for a good story.
No,
that doesn't make for a good story. If there's no personal involvement for the main character, then what's the point?
Mind you,
it's like, why doesn't he just leave? Other than the fact, like, oh well, it's going to destroy the entire world. Like, get someone else to do it. Like,
I mean, that's an amazing point to bring up. This is good only in games like RPGs. In RPGs, you don't have player involvement regarding saying, okay, I'm going to influence anything in the story, or you don't have the player many times even speaking to say what they even feel about it.
Yeah.
But the only reason why those games are much different is because they're deeply engrossed in the story outside of the main character. He may not speak, but his entire world around him is alive, telling you an overarching narrative and story about why you're there and why these things are happening. My problem is that doesn't really happen in Halo. Halo is literally nothing more than a continuation of aliens invaded, and we need to kill the aliens that are invaded. Yeah. That's a lot of what it is. So, to move on...
he almost seems like a side character. He should be a side character.
In that respect, that's how he feels like. To speak on other games that do stuff similar to this, Destiny does this similar thing where they're going to say... It's a horrible game. So they're like, we're just going to call you the Guardian, and you're one of the Guardians, and there are many like you, similar to Splinter Cell, similar to Halo. And if you consider that they're asking this regular Guardian person to go and save the galaxy by killing all these things, it is no different than Halo. They might have given him a name and called him Master Chief and given him a face, but Destiny almost tells you that we could have kind of made Master Chief anyone, because you literally make the character in Destiny. Destiny is almost no different than what Halo is in the respect that something's invading, here's Earth, and you're killing a bunch of shit. That's really what boils down to that entire story.
It's the same problem I have with all MMO stories.
Oh yeah.
Like don't. If you're out there, you're like, oh, I love my MMO story. Like, no, you don't. Like, I don't believe that for a second, because in an MMO, you're always, I mean, they have to do it this way, though. I understand that they have to do it this way because there's a million people creating their character, and you're being inserted into this world, and you have to have some sort of relevance, right? To make a story, like we've been saying, your character has to have personal investment in the things that are happening. And how MMOs always get away with this is that you're the chosen one, you're one of many chosen ones, and one of you is going to save the world.
And it's like
it doesn't work because like there's a million chosen ones.
Exactly.
So like,
and issue I have
like if everyone's special, no one is type shit.
Issue I have is like I stated before. Even if we're gonna say that the player has no impact on the story itself, at least let the story be decent enough that it doesn't need to. You could have both. You could have it where one character doesn't do shit, but you're there to experience the world and you yourself make the decisions, or just have it where...
It's actually interesting you mention that because you know a game that actually does that? I'm not saying this is a good game or anything, but a game that actually does do that is White Knight Chronicles.
There's the door.
You ever play White Knight Chronicles?
I did not.
Well, yeah, in White Knight Chronicles, you get to create your own character. Goes for like the online functionality of that game.
Yeah.
Like the online is supposed to be like an MMO type thing, but like you create your own character. But there is a story mode that your character gets put in, but literally your character is just the friend of the main character of the game. And he just tags along the adventure and you're just watching. And it makes for a lot of really, I really should show you that because it makes for a lot of really awkward scenes sometimes. But like, yeah, like you make your character and he's just kind of seeing what happens. The story isn't about you, it's about this kid.
All right.
Whatever his name was. But like, it's interesting that you mentioned that because that's actually what White Knight Chronicles does.
That's awesome. But I like games that do that only because it always adds to that spectrum of let the story be about everything else if it won't be about this one guy.
Absolutely.
I tend to not like any stories that... Let's just talk about the medium itself. If we're reading a book, we're reading it for the purposes of building this idea in our minds in terms of what these things are. They need to tell us where they are. You can't just say... okay, this happened, that happened. You need to say, where is this happening? In my mind, you can't just tell me text because I don't know how that works. Absolutely. You could be inside of a room and there could be aliens in this room and you could be inside of a stadium, but you need to describe that to the person for me to convey what's going on.
That's the challenge of books. You need to describe the room you're in,
the
emotions everyone's feeling at the time.
These things set up what's happening.
You have to have that.
Now, in books, you have to have that to convey the idea. In a film, you do not need those things because they exist visually.
There's so many advantages with books and even in gaming. There's so many advantages you have to show people how people are feeling. The slightest raise of an eyebrow can tell you so much about what a character is feeling. And that's exactly to your point. This is a medium that you can use to your advantage that you typically don't see too often, unfortunately.
And all of these mediums that use all these features do them for specific reasons. They have their reasons on why they're doing this for. So if you have a film and it's trying to convey an idea to something, the performances do that. The setting does that. The cinematography does that. The placement of characters to the screen do that. All those things lend to trying to tell you something. You could have a film in which nobody speaks and their body language tells you something that's supposed to be happening.
Absolutely.
So in that respect, well, how do you now convey this inside of a video game? Video games have their own way of telling you something that's happening, that has happened, or it lets you know that this is why these things are happening in this world, story, or whatever, without having to tell you through a book in terms of narrative, or without having to show you visually like in a film. So let's say, just for instance, you have a game, let's say like Fallout, like Bioshock, like any of these games, and
my biggest thing, I think out of every single game that I've ever played, I think Bioshock, the original Bioshock, uses the medium the strongest to tell its story.
They do a good job
I
with
can
that.
Explain that later, but finish your point. I'll talk about Bioshock later.
You might have a situation where you go inside of a room and you already know the setting of Bioshock. You're underground city or underwater city. Yeah. And let's say you walk into a room, there's a dead person there, and let's say you could loot and search people. Well, you try to loot and search him and there's nothing on him. He might be in his underwear, he might be naked. From searching him, from doing the feature to look inside of his inventory, in some respect, is like you mentally, or you basically physically, literally searching his pockets and realizing, well, he's dead here and there's nothing on him, the motive might have been robbery.
Yeah.
In your mind, that's what you've now deducted. This tells the story through the medium. Mm-hmm. You could still view that in a film if somebody were to go up and do that, but you yourself are looking through this guy's pockets. You never needed to do that. You could have just walked into this room and said, man, fuck it, it's just a naked guy. He probably killed himself doing some sort of erotic asphyxiation type shit. You don't know.
That's what everyone goes to immediately.
Yeah, David. Carradine. No, but it's like, and I was trying to turn in is you don't know why he's dead.
Yeah.
In the book might tell you these things.
Yeah.
In a film, the film might allude to these things. In the game, it is up to you to figure that out through the story. You figure out and you put in your mind how this likely happened.
Right.
You don't know how it happened, but you're going to put your assumptions together yourself. In a film, character might straight up say out loud why he thinks it happened.
Absolutely.
So the game itself is telling you a story through the objects and through the way the game plays. You could search through inventory. Mm-hmm. Doing so tells you something.
Absolutely.
If you find a new character comes to you and says, oh my God, I'm this rich character and I'm going to join your party and look at how much money I have. You could search that man's inventory. He has the best armor. He has the best gold. He has the best everything. Mm-hmm. This tells the story of his character. Absolutely. Now, people think that this is not part of a story because they take the concept of what a story is too literally in terms of someone's telling you
something.
Film tells you that's wrong. A story is about everything. Mm-hmm. Who this person is, what he looks like, his emotions, his attitude, the setting of the room. Is it smelly? Is it dirty? All these things tell you something. In a games medium, it's telling you through how you play the game to convey what this person is to the game. They won't just tell you he's rich. You know he's rich by what you saw in his inventory that you never needed to see. You never even needed to check his inventory. Exactly. But you do this, and now you get a little more into the inside of who this person is.
That's even further than the point that I was going to make about BioShock. Because, I was looking at, again, BioShock is just a perfect example of how game design can help tell a story. Mm-hmm. And it's just where I was going with it was the whole, I guess, spoiler alert. I don't know, but
I don't give a fuck about these. If you didn't play BioShock,
you don't know BioShock.
I'm gonna tell you right now.
All the shit that comes with BioShock.
If you did not play BioShock, and we got spoiler shit that's gonna be coming up in 13 seconds. If you did not play BioShock, that's your own damn fault.
Right.
We gotta spoil it right here.
Yeah,
we will spoil it.
The whole thing with the whole "Would you kindly" thing. I mean, we all know Would You Kindly.
Yeah.
Like the whole Would You Kindly thing, I think it's overlooked how great that is because when you play a first person shooter, what happens? You go. Let's take Halo. Let's take Halo.
I would say if you take any game.
Yeah, let's take any game. Absolutely. Any game. You sit down, you turn it on. Some guy says, "Oh man, we need to go here," and then poof, objective comes up. Go here, right? So you're like, okay, yeah, I have to go here. So you go there because you want to progress the story. You want to see what happens. So you go ahead, and in BioShock, it's the same thing. It's like, hey, guy, would you kindly do this for me? He's like, yeah, sure, no problem. You just go and you're going. And then to come to find out at the end of the game, some guy's like, yeah, I've been controlling you through this phrase, would you kindly? And it's like at the same, it's almost like you're playing the game, you're doing what you think is right. But at the same time, some guy tells you at the end of the game, oh no, I've been literally pushing you to do the things that I want to do, not what you want to do as a player. Mm-hmm. No, this is what I need you to do. And it just he's no longer controlling the character on screen. He's literally controlling you and telling you to do all this shit for him. And when I saw that for the first time, it blew my fucking mind. I lost my shit.
I was taken aback.
I was so gone. That is how you take your medium and the preconceptions of game design and game development and just taking it and using it to tell a great story.
Yes.
That is just, it's fantastic. BioShock is the ultimate example of how you tell a story.
I love that, and I would even go further to disagree. I'll tell you in a little bit how I'm going to disagree with this. BioShock does a great job in basically having you walk into a game and do the things that you always normally do when somebody's fucking telling you to do it, and basically saying, we're out here trying to tell a realistic story, And in doing so, we're going to give you conventional design, but give you an unconventional story as to tell you why were you conventionally playing this if this was real life. Let's say it is real life.
Yeah.
And let's say you're like, well, they're trying to show a realistic world, yet the things they're telling you are basic game stuff. Mm-hmm. And in some respect, it is a realistic world because they were telling you to do something that was not of the convention of this world that they're telling you they live in. Yeah. So you would normally not do this in real life. If you walk into a place and this person's like, oh man, here's through a speaker, hey, would you go kindly kill this other nigga for me? You wouldn't do that, but you do. This is almost like sort of some of the GTA stuff. Thing I love about Grand Theft Auto is that the characters inside of Grand Theft Auto would normally do this. So it's not as if they're asking these characters to do favors that are unrealistic to their character. Right. A person in Grand Theft Auto 3, he was just the hitman guy that they always got to do the silent hitman. They got to do their dirty work. Vice City, yeah, they were going to ask Tommy Vercetti to do this so he could get in on the drug business. All the characters that exist
there. He was a good character when, like, after all these years, you still remember his name.
Oh, good character. Ray Liotta. He literally looked exactly like Ray Liotta. You get those pixelated scenes, same thing.
Absolutely.
Like pixelated face. But it's like, you get all those understandings. They make sense to who the characters are, especially in GTA 5, because it makes sense to who all these characters
are. I really
are.
didn't finish that game.
Good ass game. So it makes sense to who all these people are and why they're being asked to do these things. Now, this is the same deal you might say with something like BioShock, once we've already completed the game anyway, to question, well, why make this guy do it? Well, he's already been brainwashed. He's already been manipulated. And the crazy thing about BioShock is you don't really know when he got manipulated. You don't know when it happens to him. So he gets manipulated and he's already getting brainwashed by using the phrase, will you kindly? And now he's off doing whatever anybody asks him to do. I don't really like the idea of any game that sort of gives you this task to do something that doesn't make sense to who the character is. The sort of, will you save my child, stranger type of idea. He's like, man, my wife has been kidnapped and I'll pay you some coins if you kill the nigga. Like, you don't even know who he is.
Why I think that's okay is it's the framing of the game made it okay to me.
It did.
Like, you had like the plane crash, and to your knowledge, the first time you played through that game, you landed, you were in a plane, minding your own damn business, you crashed in the middle of the ocean, you went to the first structure you saw, and it brought you to Rapture. So at this point, you're kind of just like, oh man, I need to get the fuck out. The first voice you hear, it's like, hey man, we're gonna get the fuck out. So you trust him because that's all you have.
It makes sense in the first moments in there.
I mean,
and then like continuing on.
The second time you're like, that's like watching a lot of movies. So like the same thing as like movies. Like the first time you watch it, like you'll get surprised. Like in Shutter Island, like I'll take like Shutter Island as an example. Good ass movie. First time you watch it, you're like, oh man, crazy. Like all this shit's happening. Like, oh man, he would do that. Of course he would do that. And you watch it the second time. You're like, oh man, that poor motherfucker. Like
second time you're like, yeah, I'm not sure I would.
But, I wouldn't do that if I was you because you already know.
I felt that way with BioShock even the first time. The first time around, and that's what made the twist really mega to me because the first time around I didn't really agree with the idea of why this person was even doing some of this because it was like, I understand that you're now trapped in the situation that you're in, but it's like there doesn't seem to be much trying to go back out from where you came from. Like, okay, why did you continue to go down through this whole thing? Like, I get the plane crash, but he was also going to an area which he could have just stayed there. It wasn't overflowing with water. It wasn't being burnt by fire. He technically could have stayed there the whole time and just waited for rescue planes to come. So in my mind, you just leave that alone for the purpose of why the twist is so great because you're so used to games sending you down the tunnel and telling you that this is what it is and you got to do it and deal with it. You're so used to games that do that. The reason why I say I don't really believe BioShock was the greatest in that respect in terms of a medium telling a story through the game itself would be is that I've played other games that have told the story through the characters and the mediums and their existence and why they're there far greater. Craig and I have had this conversation months ago regarding the show me, don't tell me. Oh. Now, my film teacher, way back in high school, would always say this. Just, don't throw up on me. She'll say, do not throw up on me. Show me, do not tell me. It is not about... That's a good way of putting it. Yes. So it is not about you telling me what the story is. It is about you showing me. She hated narration in films. There are only some films that she agreed that did narration great, but the medium is for the showing. It is about the scenes, the characters, everything. It is not about a person saying, okay, I'm going to get behind this voice and read a fucking book to you. If you want to read a book, go read a book. That's not what this is there for. This is there to say, we got a story that we're going to tell you through visual imagery and interaction.
This teacher, man. Like, I'm a...
She'll kill you. No, but this is the point I make when I say that a game story is about the interaction, about telling you, about showing. It's about all those things combined.
Right.
Other games have done those things much more supreme with given the actual game you're playing. So let's say if you're playing something like... So many examples. You want great examples? What examples we gotta use? All right.
I'm waiting. I already think I know.
Fallout 4 came out this week. We have more. We got more, and it's the exact one you're thinking too.
I'm sure it is.
It's the exact one you're thinking. But for this example, I'm going to say Fallout 4. Love it. I will, if Fallout 4 was a person, I would consider doing things that they do not want me to do to them without their consent. But it is amazing. Now, the great thing about Fallout story, and this is not even just 4, it's to all the Fallouts, is that you have a story being told by just items. The items in a room, in an area, their actions, everything tells these amazing stories about who you are and where you are. So you have, let's say something randomly happens to you, and I'll give you an example from Fallout 3. This is a part of the game that's not even the main quest. It's not even a side quest. Okay. It's merely something that just happens. You have to go to a town to make this happen to figure it out. So you go to this town, there's this random town in the wasteland, and you find this family, and they're so nice to you, and you're just like, wow, here I am, just a random son of a bitch, walking around. Why are these people so nice to you? They're talking nice to you. They want to feed you. And you're just like, wow, that's pretty good. So you start talking more with them, and they keep warning you about the basement. So you keep trying to go to the basement. Basement's locked. So if you have a high, a master of unlocking thing that's already unlocked, that's right. I did it. I did it. And if you have that set up, you could just kneel down and basically, successfully pick the lock. You go in the basement, you have body parts everywhere, you have cages everywhere, you have like all these things that are telling you why they might be acting nice to you. So you have all this here, and you're just like, the fuck's going on down here? So go back upstairs. They are pissed off that you found what you found out inside of the basement. Right. And then they try to kill you. But you kill them because you don't give a fuck. So you kill them. Like no, my G. You kill them, and there is body parts inside of the pot, and they were planning to kill you. Now, the great thing about this is not a main quest. This is not a side quest. This is a story that is basically telling itself through the medium. I did something to get to that basement. Right. The things inside of that basement told me what was happening. No one needed to say, no part of the story tells you these people are cannibals. They don't tell you they're cannibals. The main character doesn't say, wow, they are cannibals getting ready to eat me. He doesn't say that.
I better get out of
here. Now, this is where games come so close to film in the respect of we're telling you something, but we're not telling you something. Mm-hmm. You are a fucking human. You have your own brain. You have your own mind. Right. If you see these things, you could deduce to yourself what might be happening. Mm-hmm. But that's part of the fun. A book can do somewhat of the same thing if they just don't tell you why, but just tell you the things that happen there. With this game...
Good books do that.
They do. In this game, something like that happens often in the entire series in terms of here are some objects to tell you what might be going on. Another good example would be something that's not even a side quest in Fallout 4 in terms of you're just minding your own business and somebody comes asking for help. They come screaming and they say, help, she needs help, you have to go and help her. And you're like, who the fuck? Okay. So I'm just like, And the thing is they use a female NPC. So in your mind, you're just like, female NPC, she ain't gonna do shit to me. So you go over there, and she's like,
sexist motherfucker.
I'm just saying. So you're just like, okay, let me go, and help this person. You go, you follow her inside of this house area, and they try to kill you. They ambush you, and you end up killing them. You go downstairs, and there's all these naked people downstairs that are dead, and they've been complete. There's nothing. If you search inventory, they have nothing. And then you see this collection of stuff next to them, and it becomes obvious what was going on. They've been luring people here, killing them, stripping them naked, taking all this shit, and just dumping the bodies. Nice. So this tells you the story. This something that the character doesn't tell you this. Nowhere in the story does it tell you this. You interpret what's going on. You're seeing it. These things happen. You're able to piece those things together. That is a fantastic way to tell a story, because I cannot tell you, oh, well, Craig, at this part of the game, this happens. Right. I also can't tell you, wait for this side quest to show up. You just have to go there and experience it, and these things sort of happen. You deduce yourself why these people were doing these things.
God, you're making me actually want to play Fallout.
It's a great game. Those are the sort of things that happen in that game, where they just randomly happen, and you put together why you think these things went on, and it lets the medium properly say the story.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, no, I mean, literally, you make me want to play.
That's a great game.
It's a great game. I keep hearing these things about these games that Bethesda makes, and they're okay.
It's a great game. I was gonna say, the game you thought I was thinking of in terms of.
I already know.
You already know.
Go ahead. You can keep going. I'll let you introduce it, please.
That's Persona.
Of course.
Persona.
I'm gonna kick you out of the way in a second.
Persona.
Say what you need to now, because I'm not going to rant.
Craig knew. Persona, amazing. Before Craig goes on, because me and Craig talked about this, and our top games, I would say Fallout's one of them, but the ones that we've discussed many times that follow the line of what my film teacher said, show me, don't tell me. Give me a reason to play the medium. This is not just about, if I read this in a story, I would have gave a fuck.
Yeah.
This is about, I could have only got this from a game in terms of how it's being conveyed to me. Persona 3 is one of those games. Persona 3 and 4 would say. Persona series in general.
Persona 4 does it too, but he doesn't know to what extent.
Yeah. Don't spoil it. Damn, Craig. Damn it.
I'm going to try my best not to spoil it for you.
You're a great kid. One of them is Metal Gear Solid 3. One of them is Shenmue. These three games do a great job of using the medium to tell you a story about the character without telling you a story about the character.
Absolutely.
So instead of just saying, well, okay, big boss, he's like a guy and he survived the jungle and lots of things happen to him. They don't just tell you those things happen. You do those things.
Exactly.
You're eating snakes. You're surviving the jungle. You're getting shot in the eye, and then after you get shot in the eye, you get shot in the eye, and then after you get shot in the eye, you lose perception, and you aim off differently.
Really cool.
Cool. Even being in the jungle for a prolonged period of time, you have to take specific supplements, and you have to eat to nourish yourself, or your aim becomes off. Yeah. Your body begins to shake. You have to.
I didn't get that for my first playthrough of Metal Gear Solid 3, man. I didn't do a lot of
Craig's
that
stuff. Fuck wrong with this guy.
I'm like trying to shoot people. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with him?
Craig's like, wrong with this guy? Got fucking Parkinson's or something? I'm like, damn, Craig.
I'm just saying, man.
Gets mad at Craig for something.
It made the end fight really hard.
Yeah. But it's like, the game makes you do these things within the game to explain who the character is. How do these things happen to him? Mm-hmm. But it's better than if you were to say, oh, these things happen to this guy through videos and never have them do anything to you. And the point I was going to make with Shenmue is Ryo's character does these things. He goes to work, he makes his money, he talks to these people, he goes to sleep, he wakes up the next day, and he has his own appointments and his times.
Exactly.
He
has to be certain places at certain times.
Yeah, so
like a
it's
regular human being.
Yeah, so all of those things sort of tell a story within the game that's not necessarily being a literal thing. In my personal opinion, you would not call a film. You wouldn't call a film something like how can I say it? You would not call a film only when people speak. A film is everything. It is beginning, it is
dialogue.
end. It's not just dialogue. So within a game, you would definitely say the things that people do within it are the story. The things happening inside of there are lending to this being the story of the actual game.
Oh, my friend, you're leading me, aren't you?
The Rio going to actual work and actually doing the things that he's actually doing is the fucking story of the game. And part of it is, Len D killed his dad, alright? Fuxan's a fucking bitch. It's like, San, she's a good woman. It's like the things that are happening, if you were to see them and you were to not physically play them, you would still say that is the story. You would never just say when they speak, that's the story. That's not true. So if you're playing something and you're leveling the fuck up in this RPG, I don't know. We need to fucking do them. In Persona 3, you do these things. In Persona 3, you fucking play this character. They don't just tell you the kid goes to school. You fucking go to school.
That's the amazing thing about the Persona series. Especially, again, I've only played 3 and 4. I can't speak for 1 and 2.
1 and 2 is similar. You still play student.
Cool.
Well, the other bit, well, my end 2 is a reporter, but I believe in the first one, you're a student.
But in 3 and 4, specifically, just elaborate on what everyone's saying, you are the student.
Right.
You get thrown into this supernatural circumstance, and they have to explain the rules of the supernatural circumstance, how everything works. But once they get that out of the way, and they do that super early, they make sure in both games they get that out of the way as early as possible. They establish the rules of the world that you live in. In 3, you have the midnight hour between 12 and 12:01. There's this hour of supernatural shit happening, and you have to go to this tower to solve that shit.
Also known as level up time.
Basically, yes, it's level up time. You have this hour within this realm to solve all the problems of the world. But you can't just, like in most games, you can't just go ahead and go on your adventure and be the thing that, you can't just be the hero. Because you have responsibilities.
Exactly. Don't work that way.
You have tests.
Thank you.
You have exams.
Thank you.
You have friends to keep in touch with.
Thank you.
You have, you actually have a social life.
Thank you.
You are a person. You have to take care of yourself.
Exactly. You have a physical body that fucking gets fatigued from doing things.
You can't just do things. You have to manage yourself properly in order to save the world properly. And that is just, no game does that.
The thing that's incredible about that is it's different because Craig and I discussed this at length, many times before, and it's like when you take something interesting about a story and we also talked about with marketing a game improperly, in that many games tell you these things. They'll tell you that, but some of them are not. It's exactly like if you were to say, okay, well, describe to me what happens in a trailer Star Citizen and what happens in a trailer Mass Effect. It's unbeknownst to you that whether these things are even the same or not.
Yeah.
So it's the same that goes with these titles. You might say, oh, he's a soldier, but people hear the word soldier and they think to themselves, oh, he has to survive this thing. Well, you have to survive people in Call of Duty. They don't know what you mean. So both games describe themselves as being that. Another game really conveys that idea properly. So when we say that he is a student, we're not just saying that he is a student. How many fucking games have we ever played where you're playing a student? There have been dozens of games where you play a kid from high school and something happened to this kid from high school. Yes, and you've played lots of titles that are like this where they say this is the person's role. How many of you actually really do the role of the person that they say that they do? In most games, it's just he does it, but you don't see him do it. Absolutely. In most games, it's just, he does it, but here's the adventure outside of it.
Right.
You're really doing these things inside of this game. And this changes the importance, and it changes all the dynamics of all the things that now happen. If you tell someone, okay, you have this task inside of your own life, and you need to destroy and stop this guy. Oh, but by the way, you never need to fucking sleep. You never need to fucking eat.
Yes.
You have no friends, no social life. You never need to go to school. You never need to report home. Well, if you tell someone this doesn't become a harder test. This sounds like a pretty fucking easy task.
Absolutely.
The problem I have
one thing to focus on. And that's
yes. The problem I have is most games do not take into account. They don't take into account fatigue. They don't take into account nutrition. Of course, it's very easy for anyone to say it's easy for anyone to realistically beat some of these games if they were really those people, because they give you the fucking arsenal to do so. This person apparently never fucking sleeps. So you question, well, how hard was it really for this person to perform this task? Yeah. Because to me, he's a cyborg. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't eat. Nothing bothers the shit out of him. He has no family. He has dozens of lives. Dozens of lives. So it seems like the task you're telling me is difficult, not really being conveyed to me properly as difficult.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit.
You're crazy, right?
And the fact that sure, you get all that, but a lot of that stuff sometimes doesn't really convey into game design. I get it, you have your personas and it's super RPG-ish to the point where you have to sleep, you have to do all these things, and it helps you in the RPGing that you're going to be doing later. Whereas in other games it may not flow as well. When if I want to just play an action, if I want to play my Uncharted, if I have to worry about sleeping, it'd be a problem. But I think the advantage of games is that we can do things like this. We can actually make it so you have to eat, you have to sleep, and you actually have to live this adventure instead of just, going on it, I guess.
That helps in what we're discussing. And it helps in the idea that when you're telling a story through the medium, really tell the story through the medium. You're now, in your mind, you're not just telling me he's a school. I'm playing him going to school. Right. I'm the one who determines whether he gets good grades or not. I'm the one who determines whether or not any of this stuff is remembered, because you have to remember some of those test questions when school comes up.
That's what I really loved about that too.
Which I really loved. I mean,
you kind of see, I miss games I remember even playing Broken Age a little while ago. I missed games where you had to write shit down to remember it. And Broken Age was one of those games because you had certain sequences. If you've played Broken Age, you know what I'm talking about. But there are certain sequences you need to remember to make certain things do certain things. So you have to remember that shit. You can spend the 10 minutes going back and re-looking at that picture so you can get the sequence again. Or you can just write that shit down. Because I miss having to take notes on games. I guess
I mean,
I might be an old fogey that way, but
I miss that because RE series, I had to do that a lot.
So it's the old REs were that.
I like the idea of that only because in real life you would take it down. Absolutely. If it was something that important, you would take it down to remember why you need to do that.
Which is weird because I don't know why I would have brought this up, but what was that DS? Phantom Hourglass. Zelda the Phantom Hourglass. What I loved about that game is the fact that you had your map, and because it was on the DS, of course, you had your DS screen, you had to you actually had to take notes on that map. You can draw all you want on that map.
Drawing penises.
And a lot of people did, but you had to draw on that map to memorize things. I remember there was a point in the game where you had to sail between these pillars or something in a certain way, because if you didn't, shit would happen and you wouldn't be able to get through. So you see the map, you're like, oh man, this is what it is. You have to go through it this way. And you have to take out your map in the game and you can draw on it and say okay, I have to go this, and this. And that was a cool implementation of the medium. Yeah, I can actually take notes on this thing.
It's very much allowing you to say that this is helping me convey the idea of what's going on. And it's translating to the story of the game. It's helping tell you something that could only have been told this way. You're interacting.
Being Link, he would have written this thing down. Link doesn't just go to a temple, see a picture on the wall, and be like, yeah, that's for that thing in the ocean about 3 miles that way. That's what I need to remember. He wouldn't just remember it. He would have to let me bring out my map. That looks familiar. Let me write that shit down.
All of this lends into the idea of you're telling a story in an actual game, and you're basically saying that the people who are playing who are doing these things are not robots. They're human, you and I. And the issue that you and I are saying that we have with some of these games is that they make the people too robotic, but not robotic because they're supposed to be, because it's just inaccurately trying to tell the story.
Right.
So if you have somebody like we were stating with Master Chief that is just shell person, robot of, well, I'm going to do it because this is the idea of the game. The problem I have is, like, you don't watch films that way, you don't read books that way. So why would anybody play games this way? There's some games I get why one would play them that certain way, because they're static games. They're games not meant to be told a story.
Right.
But if they're going to say that the story is just an optional thing, and you could go ahead and, fucking read a book about it or something like that, then, why waste the time even entertaining the idea that that's what it's for? Right. Why tell us, oh yeah, there's this epic story? It's not an epic story. You're basically walking along explosions with narration. You would describe a film's story as, explosions and narrations. Michael Bay. Yes. That explosion story. But you wouldn't describe a film as explosions with narrations. You wouldn't describe a book as just some words that are just happening, people just saying stuff. It's about everything as a whole. And some games have the problem where they don't do that. Craig and I were speaking earlier on the Star Wars universe, on how Star Wars has their books and they have their film stuff, but it's like now you were saying recently that they changed this?
Yes. So if you're not into the Star Wars universe like most should be, as you know, Disney got the whole rights to it.
They bought it.
Everyone knows about the Disney acquisition. But with that acquisition and the fact that they're now making new movies, they decided to establish a canon in the fact that they're writing off most, if not nearly all, of all the books and the other fiction that have been written about the Star Wars universe, other than the original 6 movies, the cartoon that premiered like in 2000, like late 2000s, the Clone Wars cartoon.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Clone Wars.
The Clone Wars cartoons, that's still canon. And every book that's been released after, I think, like 2000, like a certain date in 2015, in 2014, I want to say. So they've narrowed their canon now. And to me, a lot of people are upset. I know a lot of people are upset because, oh man, what about our Darth Revan's and our Darth Maliks and all the Republic stuff? I'm like, yeah, it's all cool stuff. I'm not going to lie. A lot of really cool shit. But if going forward as a company, you want to make movies and you want to create new fiction, established fiction that you are going to put forth, you have to narrow the universe. You have to let people know exactly what is true and what is not. And sure, you can be upset about them eliminating a lot of the Old Republic stuff. A lot of people are upset that they're eliminating the Old Republic stuff because they're probably not going to touch it. But at the same time, it allows them, every future writer, because everyone, you're excited about, everyone's excited about episode 7.
Oh, yeah.
But imagine if episode 7 had to stay within the confines of every single book, every single comic, every single video game. Imagine if they had to be faithful to all that stuff. Imagine how constrictive that is.
Exactly.
As a writer, that is not something you want. You want to be able to explore.
Yes.
You want to be able to explore this universe, and restricting the canon this way makes it so we can get more interesting stories in the theatrical releases, and I think that's just fine.
And the most amazing thing to how this relates to games is the idea that we basically, they're trying to say the books that they're releasing are real. They're not just the interpretation of a writer. They're not just interpretation of several people. The thing is, we have stuff like DC where a writer might say, this is my interpretation of Batman, and that's okay. It's understood that's what that is. Right. The problem we have with something like, let's say, Halo, where their books are basically telling a story. Yeah. Who's really telling the story? Is Bungie themselves saying that, all of this is really what we meant by that game? Yeah. Or is somebody saying, wow, What if the Arbiter's planet was blah, 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 blah.
Like, remember when Master Chief said, I need a weapon? He was really talking about the philosophical conflict of having...
He's really discussing the PMCs, and he's really discussing those private military companies, and he's really talking about
it's an allegory of the Middle East and how the America needs to get out of that war.
That man is really discussing the gun companies and their interest inside of the military-industrial complex. I mean, my issue is, anyone could say this writing a book. Do they, as the writers who wrote the fucking game, really mean this? Now,
this is my favorite podcast. I'm sorry.
It's a really good one. Now, if you're out here and you're trying to write a game story, this wasn't in the game story. Oh, but somebody wrote a book and that's in the book?
Yeah.
If you said that in the game, I would have made sense. Make the actions happen in the book, in the game, that's cool. But the people who are writing this aren't okaying it. They're not the writers of the game.
It's basically, at that point...
Or a lot of them aren't.
Like we were talking about earlier, it basically comes out like that. That's basically fan fiction.
Pretty much.
Imagine if, like, an anime... I guess, like, anime is, like, the biggest topic of fan fiction. Let's say, like, Dragon Ball Z, right? Let's just talk about, like, the bear... Like, everyone knows Dragon Ball Z. Let's say I make a fan fiction... that Goku and Vegeta get together because I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure it's out there, and I might have written it. You don't know. But imagine now if Akira Toriyama making new. He's trying to continue the story now. Imagine now he had to stay true to that fan fiction that Goku and Vegeta are now together. Like,
he's like, this happened, guys. You guys read this fan fiction.
How far do you, some guy wrote about it, so it must be true, right?
Exactly.
Like,
and that's exactly what we discussed that. We joked about that, but that really is what the issue is. It's saying that the person other than the creator created something and a story about it, and apparently this is true.
Yeah.
Who's making this fucking universe?
Absolutely.
Who's really writing the rules? I can't go and say George Lucas created this concept. Okay, but let me go and write my own thing. If you even recognize that, what does that say about your own work?
Yeah.
No one's going to tell me what my fucking work is. Absolutely. If I create something, it is my own, and no one's going to tell me how that is. So for someone to say...
George Lucas.
Exactly. It's horrible.
George Lucas a lot of this shit. But.
So if somebody comes out and they're like, well, George, you may have written it this way, but we wrote it this way. This only shows that he had half an idea. Yeah. It shows that he had an interesting concept and a horrible execution. And these guys
exactly
have more ideas and better ideas that make his universe make more sense than even what he stated. Mm-hmm. People might think that's impossible. In my opinion, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. If somebody said, okay, I'm going to have this story, all right, and it's about his universe and all they know is baseball, and that's all I said. That's it. Somebody else could have said, okay, why don't you have another planet that's all about football? Why don't you have another planet that's all about soccer? Why don't you have it that the planet that's all about, baseball, why don't they have it where, like, they're born and then the bats are the first thing they touch? I mean, he could go on and on. You might have started the concept, this son of a bitch gonna end it. Now, that is exactly... That's exactly...
Grab this pen and grab
this That's exactly what we mean in the respect that who's really in control of this.
Absolutely.
If you're making a game and you're like, oh man, I got this fantastic idea for this universe, people cannot be writing books that make more sense than your game.
Absolutely.
When you play something like a Metal Gear Solid, yeah, there are books in Metal Gear Solid. They don't go near what the game is. Absolutely. The game conquers the book.
Exactly.
So he's not going to say, okay, in the book, Snake's going to tell you about the military-industrial complex. Metal Gear Solid 4, he tells you about that. Yeah. He tells you why these PMCs are here. He tells you the state of the world. He tells you why these things are happening. They make sense in the medium in which they're being provided in.
At the end of the day, what it comes down to is that the medium that you originated from, the medium that you're trying to tell a story from, is the medium that should be definitive.
100%.
I shouldn't need anything else. Whereas, like again, bringing it back full circle to Halo. If I have to go back and say that the only way I'm going to get the full extent of this story is through the books, then you're doing it wrong.
Thank you.
It's as simple as that. You're doing it wrong.
Because
you are supposed to be a game. You're supposed to be telling me a story through the game then.
Mm-hmm.
That's simple and plain. It should be nothing else. The book should be like
added to it.
Exactly. It should be add-ons. It should be DLC, if you will, to the actual story of the game. Like, it should not be the definitive. Mm-hmm. I should not have to read the books to get the full experience. As simple as that.
And especially with something like a game, which can convey all of them. The game conveys all of them, which is like the saddest part of it.
I'm going to say the same thing with Star Wars. You shouldn't have to play a game to get the full experience of Star Wars because it should all be in the movies.
Agreed.
You should watch
That's 100%.
You should watch. It's as simple as that. Like, sure, like it'll have other stories intertwining with the movies, like games like Force Unleashed showed us that. You know, like different sort of like. If I tell you like, hey, go watch Star Wars, like I want you to experience Star Wars, I'm not going to tell you to go play Force Unleashed. I'm going to tell you to watch episode 4, 5, and 6.
Exactly.
I mean, that's how you do it. Like, it's as simple as that. It's the medium that it originated from is how you should experience the story.
Mm-hmm. And it's like when we have games that are, let's say, outside of a film that began as a game, something like Mass Effect. The same applies to that. They may or may not be books on Mass Effect, I'm unaware. But if you have something that's like Mass Effect and the whole story is being told in the codex, I don't want to hear that. It's fine that it's in the codex, and I get with the purpose of it. Yeah. But I want to be able to crash land on a planet, talk to an Asari, and have a conversation with Asari where they say, "Oh yeah, this is the history of our people." I never liked the idea that I had to read through codex the history of some of these people. Yet speaking to them, they are not telling you about the history of their own people. There's a problem with that.
I completely agree with that.
And I feel like this.
I hear, like I don't want to be quoted over here, but I hear like games like Dark Souls do that a lot too.
Spoiler.
Yeah, games like Dark Souls do that a lot, but at the same time, I feel like games like I think the best example of like the way these people who do it right are games like some of the original Resident Evils.
Oh, I love that series.
And again, I can't speak for Dark Souls because Dark Souls might do this as well. Dark Souls might do this, but what Resident Evil does is it gives you a story. It gives you a story that you can already be interested in. Mm-hmm. You're already interested in because I want to see in Resident Evil 1, I want Chris and Jill to get out of it. I want they're trapped inside this mansion. I want them out. They set that up very nicely, and everything else just unfolds the way it should. But then you get into all this like I don't want to call it codex, but you see all these like
documents and
all
stuff.
These documents and stuff that elaborate on the things that are happening.
I love that.
That's
so
fantastic.
Much. I'm surprised you brought that. I was going to bring up Ari. Well, Ari's a great example.
It's okay. I brought it up.
This guy, he's a masterful example. It's like Ari. Like I like it because there's a reason behind why there's no one there. There's a reason behind everyone turned into zombies. So it's cool because
you don't need to read that to get that though. You know why there's no one there because you see all the zombies there.
Yeah,
like, this is what happened. All these people they turn into these creatures. But if you want more detail onto how it happened and when it happened and the specific circumstances in which it happened, you can read the documents. You can read all the journal entries and the writings on the wall,
which is awesome.
Like
I love that. I like that because it's like we were stating, it's telling it through the medium, and it's like even though you're just reading a document that anybody could read like a book, it's still adding something to the game that
you could have missed it.
Yes, you could have missed it. You could have never read it. So it's like you could read in the next REs, which I personally think you should do. Is just instead of just having somebody that everyone seems to be writing notes before they die, you could have it where somebody do this whole incident, lost internet reception. They didn't have any internet. And if they're going to die, many people are always going to do this. They're going to write suicide notes. They want some sort of... They want to know that someone knew who they were. Right. So if they're going to die in this situation, have it where you could pick up their phone and their phone is out of battery, or you had a battery or something, and you turn on the phone and through the message or through the memos, you could read this is what they said before they die, which gives you a clue to something.
Themselves looking like oh well, this is it for me.
That's an even better one. So it's like there's all those sorts of ways that people could convey things that also add small stuff to stories. They could say something like they're going to kill themselves and they had so much ammo left inside of here, which lets you figure out that you could probably get ammo there. Yeah. They always do some tricks like that.
Yeah, Resident Evil likes to do that.
They like to do that.
The earlier Resident Evils did.
So
oh man, I hid all the remaining ammo that I had in this box in the reception area.
Can't believe it's gonna go to waste. Like they'll sit there and then try to sneak it in there. They'll be like, man, I can't believe I'm gonna die. And the code to the balcony safe is gonna be 316. After all
this, like, oh man, I can't believe I set the code to the balcony of the first day I came here. And you look back in the journal, it was like, first day I came here, January 1st.
Yes. I mean, even as corny as it is, it's still an awesome way of telling you stuff. It is effective.
It can be corny because I mean, they had to deal with what they had back then, and it can be corny. It can seem kind of contrived and forced, but like it was an interesting way of conveying these information to people. Everybody that out here can't do with anything else, you know.
Which I love, but it's a great example to really end our podcast to say these are great ways that the medium can tell you something without literally telling you something. Because gaming is different than film, it's different than books. It's something that all three could be combined into the same thing in order to properly tell you something. There should never be a result to say, well, you got to read a book to play a game. Because can you not read text in a game? Can they not convey voice acting to you? All these things could all be done to tell you something, but let that happen through the game itself. I think games that don't do this are not doing it because they can't. They're doing it because they're not good enough to. Absolutely. Because we have proof that directors, writers in gaming can tell you a story through a game. Absolutely. It's bullshit if they tell you otherwise.
Absolutely.
So it's been Meaty Foxhole.
I look, granted, last point before we close out. I look forward a lot to seeing this in the future. Mm-hmm. And hopefully in later podcasts we can talk to you about the games that actually do it properly.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like we said, this is just how it should be. This is how games should convey their stories because you have the power to do so. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. This has been your boy, Ed.
It's your boy, Craig.
And, yeah, that's it.